to find someone that you can use in a relationship as your mentor, someone that you can get that advice from, someone that you respect enough to really want to listen to. You got to be very careful. And part of it though is this. As we go through life trying to find ourselves and to know who to listen to, a lot of times we have to really understand that much of our problem is based on lack of trust and fear. Many people that will not be transparent. Transparency is a beautiful thing if you know how to not share intimate, private details that are nobody else's concern other than you do not want to ever betray a trust that someone has in you by sharing things that they told you, by being over transparent with other people in regard to confidentiality that's been entrusted upon you. And so, but if you get to where you are in it with the person that your relationship is with, at whatever type of relationship it is, employer, friend, neighbor, whatever, spouse, child, parent, cousin, if you understand the parameters of what we can call safe in each relationship, and then let it grow from there, and put your own fear of not knowing how far you should or shouldn't go in a relationship. If you can get to where each individual relationship becomes something that the Holy Spirit guides you through, and you know that you're not betraying or being too open, when you get to where you can be tuned in to each person and love them and that you're there for them. I come back to the show that my wife and I did about a month ago on why listening skills are so important. That show has the same stuff I'm talking about now. When you are in a conversation with someone, when you are in a relationship with someone, the very best thing that you can do is show your love for that person by listening to what they are trying to communicate.
Absolutely.
And not be thinking about what your response is going to be without hearing what they're saying.
Absolutely.
So I threw a lot of stuff at you, but I got to tell you, I seek to be totally transparent, but also know when and not to divulge things that have been entrusted upon me. But I am there for my brother. I am there for my sister. I am there for the other people. And I believe that the Lord has given me something that takes away my fear so that I can help other people become more trusting and get closer to the Lord. That's just my own expression of what my own purpose is. And for me, look, having a terminal illness is in the center of this too, because, I went through a lot of stuff to get to where I'm totally free. And, and part of my freedom is a physical freedom also. I'm not intimidated and fearful of many people. And last week, you were very, very kind. 2 weeks ago in the sharing call, you talked about being a martial arts master. But let me just say this. There's a lot of martial artists out there that they go into the martial arts mostly for self-defense and fighting skills. And that they become someone that is like very physical and, they're not afraid to be in a physical encounter. Well, let me tell you something. I went through that over my years. I've had 10,000 fights. I've been in tournaments everywhere. I've been instructing, whatever. But that's not what this is. It's supposed to be a discipline that you learn to be comfortable and at peace so that you can be there in a full relationship with others and protect those others, but also feel comfortable within yourself. That's really what the art's supposed to be about.
Interesting. Now to that last point there, many of us that don't have that skill that we would look at martial arts and think, okay, you can become a tough dude by learning what Steve knows, and it's interesting that once you know it, someone like you at the level that you know it, you see it completely different. It feels that.
I'll share one last thing, and then I really want to listen to where you go because I love listening to you. Every time we've ever been together, you always take it to a beautiful level where I learn a lot and I feel very good, and I'm in agreement almost. Always, not almost always. I've always been in agreement with you.
Thank you.
I want to tell you, there's a man named Gichin Funakoshi, and his title is the founder or the father of modern day karate. And he was in Okinawa during World War II, and in the island of Okinawa over there, in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
He was a little guy. He was only like about 5'7", and he didn't weigh 135 pounds, 138, I think. And I read his book called, Karate, My Way, and it's the most peaceful thing you'll ever read. And you remember the movie Love Story with Ryan O'Neal and Jennifer O'Neill years ago in the 60s? You probably weren't even born, but there's a famous movie, and there's a song. The soundtrack to this movie became very, very famous. I think it got a what do you call it, a Grammy or something.
Yeah, an Oscar probably.
Like do how sweet a love can be. Anyway, the point is this: one of the characters, I guess I don't remember if it's him or her, to be honest with you, had a terminal illness and was going to die. But the theme of Love Story was like the poster that came out of the movie, and it said, "Love is never having to say you're sorry." And what that means is that when you love somebody that much, your own behavior is going to always do right by them and to understand them, to communicate them, to love them in such a way that you're not going to be confrontational and harsh and mean and stuff. And you're not going to do something that you later have to come back and ask for an apology. And that would be perfect if we could all live that way. But basically, if you love someone that much and you're that deep into your relationship, it would be beautiful to never behave in a way that you have to come back and say, I'm sorry that I treated you the way that I did. Because you love them so much that you know to not treat them in that harsh way. Well,
correct.
My take on Gichin Funakoshi's book on Karate My Way, the founder of modern day karate, is amazing. It's this. This is really profound. Karate is never having to use it. When you're a person that's that deep into what karate really is, the attitude that I'm talking about, you never have to physically engage with anyone because your sheer presence and the love that exudes from you with a certain lack of fear diffuses the aggressive, violent behavior that could be coming at you. Now, not to say that there couldn't be some random act of violence that you have to be prepared for, but what I'm saying is, in most confrontations where there's a person that's agitated, irrational, a bully-type personality, when you really have this type of an attitude and you have enough belief in your own ability, you can get closer to the person who's agitated and show them love and let them know, hey, you're having a bad day. I've been there before. You need somebody to talk to. And then most people don't get inside their space like that. But I get inside their space because the person that I'm talking to that's irrational, they have some kind of, they're hurting inside, and I want to empathize with them. And I want to be there for them. I want to be the friend that they haven't been able to have because they scare everybody else away.
Absolutely. Yes.
But karate is never having to use it. When you really master it, and that's what Gichin Funakoshi teaches. He says you're not high level enough in your knowledge and your skill in the art of karate if you have to physically use it. It's a spiritual.
That's interesting. Spiritual. Very, very, very interesting. Very powerful stuff. But and how do I make a connection to such a deep point there? Because you're not high level enough if you have to physically use your skill. That's very, very powerful right there. But I started this with a question when I listened to Leffert, and then I went and saw John's video. I asked myself a question, and it was simple. It was, do you know yourself? Do I know myself? And Steve, why do I ask that question? Is that John and Leffert, they touch on so many different things. And if I know myself, then there is nothing for me to feel ashamed about. For example, you're not ashamed of your heritage. You're not ashamed that you are a martial arts artist. You're not ashamed that you know about this book from this master that you just told me about. You're not ashamed of that. You're sharing it with me openly. So Why? Because you know your heritage, you know your skill, you know the discipline, right? Because martial art is actually a discipline, right? So you know that, and you know about this master. You don't feel shame about that. So if you know yourself, then there's nothing for you to feel shame about yourself, right? Like you talked about that open in the diagram, and you talk about the closed area, right? The hidden, the part that we didn't know. And John in the video showed us it's sort of like an overlap, an area in between open and hidden that mainly we spend a lot of our time, right? And I asked myself, do I really know myself? Do I really know myself? And I started really thinking, Steve, because every time, and this is a little of some of the conclusion that I came, that every time I feel ashamed, or I feel guilty, or I close myself, I'm sending a signal to you, to the world, to the universe. I'm telling you, I do not know myself. Why do I say that? When I have that behavior, when I have those behavior, the signal I'm sending is I do not know myself, is because I'm telling you what you said earlier. You mentioned this word. I am afraid to letting you see who I really am. And because I'm afraid to letting you see who I really am, then what do? I close myself. I go in the diagram from the open to the hidden, and I try to hide it. Why? Because I'm feeling guilty. Why? Because I'm ashamed. And you know, at the very end of the video, or almost to the end of the video, John said this, and I literally dotted 3 dots. I wrote, dot, 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 and then I wrote something else. John said, we are perfectly imperfect. We are perfectly imperfect. And I said, dot, 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 and then I said this. Accepting myself, or accepting my imperfection, gets me closer to perfection. The more I accept my imperfection, the more perfect I become. Not because I'm perfect, but simply because I'm recognizing my imperfection. Recognizing our imperfections, Steve, gets us closer to perfect than trying to hide it, or to withdraw, or not accepting, or trying to make everything perfect before your eyes. Why? Because then, what you're talking about, I actually wrote that word when you were talking, and some of the things you said. You know the word I wrote? I wrote character. I wrote character. Why? Here's the thing. Just follow my crazy thought here. A person that's afraid to feel ashamed. A person that never feels guilt. Guilt to a degree is a good thing. I don't know if you ever thought of that. But guilt is kind of like when you are on a GPS and you get off track and you have to reroute. Guilt makes you reroute. So sometimes feeling guilty is not a bad thing. And it's even better when you let those around you, people that you trust, when you let them know that you feel guilty, right? Being closed off prevents you from growing, right? Prevents you from growing. Take a tree and put it in your bathtub, right? Take a seed and put it in your bathtub. That seed is a tree, but it's closed off, right? Doesn't matter. It needs sun, it needs nutrients, it needs moisture. You need to put it in the right environment. So being closed off prevents you from being in the right environment. Take the same tree and hide it in your pantry, right? Being hidden prevents you from going, prevents you from achieving the success that you want to achieve. So being closed off and hidden and withdraw, right? It's trying you're trying to become perfect on that. So accepting my imperfection, here's what happens. Gets me closer to perfection because it works on my character. And here's the thing, Steve. Many people, you, myself, John, Fabio, Leffert, at some point in our lives, we have become characters, but we lack character. And it's not the same thing having character than being a character. When I am a character, I show you someone that I am not genuinely. I show you someone that I pretend to be, but that I am not. I'm being a character.